Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The autumn light filtered through the dining room windows of the Mallory home, casting elongated shadows across the oak table. Orrin Mallory, 45, sat at the far end, his posture rigid but composed. His dark eyes, usually warm and observant, had turned to flint as he watched his wife of 15 years, Bryn, 43, stand with a clipboard pressed against her chest. Her auburn hair was pulled into a tight ponytail, accentuating the sharp angles of her face. "Let's get started," Bryn announced with a brittle smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We need to address some family concerns." Around the table sat Bryn's family. Her older sister, Odessa Harlow, 47, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and a permanent expression of dissatisfaction. Odessa's husband, Trent Harlow, 49, a man who wore his Ivy League education like a badge and treated conversations like competitions. Their daughter, Layla, 17, who hadn't looked up from her phone since arriving, her painted fingernails tapping incessantly against the screen. And Bryn's younger brother, Nolan Pierce, 35, slouched in his chair, his tech startup hoodie at odds with the calculating look in his eyes that 9-year-old Ellis Mallory, Orrin and Bryn's son, sat beside his father, his small hands fidgeting with a wooden puzzle Orrin had carved for him last Christmas. "I've been speaking with everyone," Bryn continued, her voice taking on the same tone she used for her nonprofit fundraising pitches, "and we believe it's time to address the discomfort you create at family gatherings, Orrin." Orrin's eyebrow raised slightly, the only indication he'd heard her. "You don't participate. You don't engage. You sit there judging us all," Odessa interjected, her words dripping with rehearsed concern. "The kid needs better influences," Nolan added, gesturing vaguely toward Ellis without looking at him. Trent cleared his throat authoritatively. "As the most experienced parent here, you have one child." Orrin spoke for the first time, his voice low and even. "I think we need to consider what's best for the extended family unit." Trent continued, as if Orrin hadn't spoken. Layla glanced up briefly. "It's just super awkward when you're around, Uncle Orrin. Like, nobody can be themselves." Bryn nodded sympathetically at her niece before turning back to the table. "I've prepared a simple resolution. All those in favor of Orrin being excluded from future family gatherings until he demonstrates more appropriate social integration, raise your hand." 5 hands shot up, immediately Bryn's among them. "Mom." Ellis's voice trembled, his eyes wide with confusion. "What are you doing?" "It's for the best, sweetie," Bryn replied without looking at her son. Ellis turned to his father, tears welling in his eyes. "Dad, why are they doing this?" Orrin's face softened as he looked at his son. He reached over, his calloused hand gently covering Ellis's smaller one. "Because they don't understand the difference between quiet and weak." He stood slowly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Take your puzzle, buddy. We're going to get some ice cream." "You can't just leave," Bryn snapped. Orrin smiled, not the warm smile he reserved for Ellis, but something colder. "Actually, I can. You just voted me out, remember? Ellis, grab your jacket." As they walked toward the door, Orrin paused, turning back to the table. "You know, I've been taking notes for years. Every loan, every favor, every manipulation. I just never thought you'd make it this easy to use them." The door closed behind them with a soft click that somehow felt more final than a slam ever could point 6 months earlier. Orrin stood in his home office, meticulously updating the ledger he'd maintained for nearly a decade. The room was a testament to his methodical nature, bookshelves organized by subject and author, a whiteboard with neatly written logistics formulas, and walls adorned with maps marking shipping routes from his business, that a knock at the door interrupted his concentration. "The caterers need another 2,000 for Layla's birthday party," Bryn announced without preamble, leaning against the doorframe. Orrin set down his pen. "We already paid them 5,000. Odessa wants to upgrade to the premium package. It's important to her. It's important to her that I pay for it." Orrin corrected. Bryn's expression hardened. "They're family, Orrin. This is what family does." "Is it?" Orrin pulled out his checkbook and began writing. Last month, it was Nolan's emergency investment opportunity. The month before, it was Trent and Odessa's second mortgage. You're always so cold about these things, Bryn sighed dramatically. Numbers and ledgers. Where's the humanity? Oren handed her the check. Humanity doesn't pay bills, Bryn, and family doesn't usually come with itemized requests. As she took the check, her fingers lingered against his not affectionately, but assessingly. You've changed. No, Oren replied, turning back to his ledger. I've just stopped pretending. After she left, Oren pulled out a recorder from his desk drawer and spoke quietly. April 15th. Additional $2,000 for Layla's party, requested by Odessa through Bryn. Total contributions to Harlow family now exceed $75,000 in the past year alone. He paused, then added, Ellis asked me to teach him chess today. Bryn told him it was too boring and sent him to Odessa's for a proper play date with Layla, who ignored him for 3 hours while he sat alone watching TV. Dad, watch this. Ellis called out, his small body balanced precariously on the diving board at the country club pool during Layla's 17th birthday celebration. Oren looked up from his conversation with Hex Monroe, his longtime friend whose mechanical expertise had helped Oren build his logistics business from the ground up. Hex was a bear of a man with a salt and pepper beard and hands perpetually stained with engine grease, distinctly out of place among the polished country club patrons. I'm watching, buddy, Oren called back, smiling as Ellis executed a cannonball that sent water splashing over the edge of the pool. Your kid's got spirit, Hex observed, his gravelly voice carrying a warmth reserved for few people. Takes after his mother that way, Oren replied, though the comparison lacked conviction. Across the pool deck, Bryn held court with her sister and brother, occasionally glancing disapprovingly in Oren's direction. Layla sat at a separate table with her friends, making no attempt to hide her disdain for her baby cousin as Ellis climbed out of the pool and ran back to the diving board. Oren excused himself from Hex and walked closer to the pool, wanting to be near in case Ellis needed him. As he passed Layla's table, he overheard her speaking to her friends. That's my weird uncle, she said, not bothering to lower her voice. Mom says he's like emotionally stunted or whatever. Aunt Bryn basically runs everything because he's totally clueless about normal human stuff. Oren's step faltered, but he continued walking, his face betraying nothing. Later that evening, as guests began to leave, Oren found himself cornered by Trent near the bar. Great party, isn't it? Thanks for covering it, Trent said, clapping Oren on the shoulder with forced camaraderie. Listen, I've been meaning to talk to you about a business opportunity. My firm is expanding into logistics consulting, and with your experience. You want me to invest, Oren stated flatly. Trent's smile flickered. I want to offer you an opportunity. Ground floor. Big returns. Like the real estate venture last year? The one that needed an emergency cash infusion 6 months in. Market fluctuations, Trent waved dismissively. This is different. It always is. Oren sipped his whiskey. Send me the business plan. I'll review it. Great. Trent's relief was palpable. I knew you'd see the potential. And hey, family takes care of family, right? As Trent walked away, Oren noticed Odessa approaching Bryn, both women glancing in his direction before huddling closer in conversation on the drive home. With Ellis asleep in the back seat, Bryn broke the silence. You embarrass me tonight. Oren kept his eyes on the road. How exactly? Bringing Hex to a country club event? Standing there scowling the entire time? Making that scene about Ellis on the diving board when Odessa was trying to introduce me to the chairwoman of the Willamette Valley Arts Council? Ellis could have hurt himself. He was fine. You're smothering him with all this attention. He needs to learn independence. He's 9. And that's another thing. Bryn continued as if he hadn't spoken. You never raise your voice. Even when you're angry. It's unnatural. It makes everyone uncomfortable. I'm sorry my emotional regulation is inconvenient for you. Oren replied evenly. See? That right there. Bryn's voice rose. Who talks like that? Emotional regulation? You're like a robot pretending to be human. Ellis stirred in the back seat, and Oren lowered his voice further. We'll discuss this at home. Once Ellis was tucked into bed, Bryn resumed her attack in the kitchen, her voice rising with each accusation. You don't care about my family. You don't care about my career. All you care about are your precious systems and your little pet project, son. Don't bring Ellis into this, Orrin warned, a rare edge entering his voice. Why not? You've turned him into a mini-you already. Quiet and judging, and enough. Orrin's voice didn't rise, but something in his tone made Bryn stop mid-sentence. I've supported your family financially for 15 years. I've never questioned your career choices. I've attended every function, made every donation, signed every check. He stepped closer, but Ellis is off limits. He is not a project. He is my son, our son, Bryn corrected automatically. Is he? Orrin asked quietly. When was the last time you helped with his homework? Attended one of his science club meetings? Asked him about the book he's reading? I'm busy. I have responsibilities. So do I. And right now, my responsibility is to protect my son from becoming collateral damage in whatever game you and your family are playing. Bryn's eyes narrowed. What is that supposed to mean? Orrin didn't answer. Instead, he walked to his office and closed the door, leaving Bryn standing alone in the kitchen. Inside, he unlocked a drawer in his desk and pulled out a leather-bound journal. Opening to a fresh page, he began to write, his pen pressing firmly into the paper. It's time. The community center bustled with activity as Ellis's science club prepared for the regional competition. Orrin moved among the tables, helping students troubleshoot their projects while keeping an eye on Ellis, who was collaborating with a girl named Penny on a wind turbine model. Mr. Mallory, a voice called from behind him. Orrin turned to find Delaney Ross, Ellis's former kindergarten teacher who now ran the science club. Her warm brown eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled, and her natural curls were pulled back in a practical ponytail. Ms. Ross, Orrin nodded. The kids look ready. Thanks to you, she replied. Not many parents volunteer every week. She hesitated, then added, Ellis mentioned that Mrs. Mallory couldn't make it to the competition this weekend either. Orrin's expression remained neutral. She has a fundraising event. Delaney nodded, her eyes reflecting an understanding that required no further explanation. Well, Ellis is lucky to have you in his corner. Some kids don't have anyone showing up consistently. Before Orrin could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Bryn. Need you to wire $5,000 to Nolan ASAP. Emergency with his startup. We'll explain later. He put the phone away without responding. Everything okay? Delaney asked. Family business. Orrin replied vaguely. About the competition, I'd like to drive Ellis myself rather than taking the bus with the group. Is that all right? Of course. Actually, I could use the extra space for equipment. She smiled, then lowered her voice. Between us, Ellis and Penny have the strongest project. I wouldn't be surprised if they place. Orrin allowed himself a small smile. He's been working hard. Later that evening, Orrin sat at his desk, making phone calls while Ellis worked on homework in the adjacent study nook Orrin had built for him. Parker, I need the trust documents revised as we discussed. Orrin spoke quietly into the phone. Yes, including the provisions regarding custody. No, I don't anticipate needing them, but I want them in place. Yes, by next week would be ideal. After hanging up, he placed another call. X, it's Orrin. Remember that warehouse space we looked at in Bellevue? I want to move forward with the lease. Yes, I know it's residential zoned upstairs. That's actually the point. As he ended the call, he noticed Ellis watching him. Everything okay, buddy? Orrin asked. Ellis set down his pencil. Are you and Mom getting a divorce? The directness of the question caught Orrin off guard, but he'd never lied to his son and wouldn't start now. He moved to sit beside Ellis. Why do you ask that? Aunt Odessa told Mom that she should talk to her lawyer friend. I heard them when I was getting water during their lunch yesterday. Orrin considered his words carefully. Your mom and I are having some disagreements. I don't know what's going to happen, but I want you to know that no matter what, you will always be the most important person in my life. Ellis nodded slowly. If you and Mom aren't together anymore, would I still get to live with you? If that's what you want, Orrin replied, his voice softening. Is it? Ellis looked down at his homework. Mom's never home anyway. And when she is, she's always on the phone or mad about something. He looked up at his father. You owe me with stuff? You listen. Orrin wrapped an arm around his son's shoulders. Then that's what we'll make happen. After Ellis went to bed, Orrin received a text from an unknown number. Operation Beautiful Day is in motion. Orrin deleted the message immediately, then turned to his journal. Tonight's entry would be particularly detailed. Sunday dinners at the Mallory house had become a tradition that Orrin silently endured. This particular evening, Odessa dominated the conversation with tales of her interior design business's latest high-profile client. Of course, I told her that eggshell was completely wrong for her complexion. The house needs to compliment her, not wash her out, Odessa explained, gesturing with her fork. She didn't get it at first, but once I showed her the seafoam samples, she practically begged me to take the project. Trent nodded knowingly. That's how it was when the Hendersons hired my firm for their portfolio restructuring. Sometimes clients don't know what they need until you show them. Speaking of clients, Nolan chimed in, his focus shifting to Orrin. Any word on that investment we discussed? The Series B funding round closes this Friday. Before Orrin could answer, Bryn jumped in. Of course he'll help, won't you, honey? Family supports family. The doorbell rang, interrupting the conversation. I'll get it, Orrin said. Rising from the table, he returned moments later, followed by a courier in a crisp uniform. Delivery requiring signatures for everyone present, the courier announced. During dinner, Bryn frowned. Can't this wait? I'm afraid not, ma'am, the courier replied, placing 6 identical envelopes on the table. I need to witness each recipient opening their envelope and confirming receipt of the contents. Odessa picked up an envelope with her name on it. What is this, Orrin? I have no idea, he replied. Taking a seat again, point one by one, they opened the envelopes. Inside each was a letter on the letterhead of Whitman, Frost & Associates, one of Portland's most prestigious law firms. The room fell silent as they read. This is ridiculous. Trent was the first to speak, his confident facade cracking. Character defamation? Emotional manipulation? What kind of joke is this? It's not a joke, Orrin replied calmly. It's documentation. Bryn stared at him, her face pale. You've been recording us? Our private conversations. Oregon is a one-party consent state, Orrin stated. Everything documented is legal and admissible. Nolan slammed his letter down. This is bullshit. You can't prove anything. Page 3, Orrin directed. The complete transcript of your explanation for why you needed $80,000 last March. Compare it to the business proposal you showed your investors. Nolan's face drained of color. Odessa turned to Bryn. Did you know about this? Is this why you've been pushing us to? Don't finish that sentence, Odessa, Orrin interrupted. You'll only make it worse for yourself. The courier cleared his throat. If everyone has confirmed receipt, I'll need signatures on this form. After the courier left, the dining room erupted. You manipulative. Trent began. Careful, Orrin cautioned. Remember the letter. Every word spoken in this house is potentially being recorded. Ellis looked between the adults, confusion and fear on his face. Orrin turned to him gently. Ellis, why don't you go up to your room and work on your model? I'll be up to help in a bit. After Ellis left, Bryn turned on Orrin. How dare you do this in front of our son? Our son? Orrin raised an eyebrow. The one you volunteered to send to summer camp so he wouldn't interfere with your sister's pool renovation plans? The one whose science competition you missed to attend Layla's shopping trip? That's not fair. No, it isn't, Orrin agreed. And neither is what you've been doing to him or to me. He stood up. I think dinner is over. You all have copies of the documentation. The choice of what happens next is yours. As the others gathered their things in stunned silence, Layla approached Orrin. My mom said you'd pull something like this, she said, trying to sound defiant despite her shaking voice. She said you're calculating and cold. Orrin looked at her directly. Your mother also said the money she borrowed from me last year was for your college fund. Would you like to know where it actually went? Layla hesitated, then turned away. After everyone left, Bryn confronted Orrin in the kitchen. What do you want? Money? The house? Is this some kind of sick negotiation tactic? I want what I've always wanted, Orrin replied. A family that treats each other with respect and honesty. Since that's clearly not possible, I'll settle for protecting myself and Ellis from further exploitation. You can't take my son from me. I don't want to, Oren said truthfully. But I will if I have to. Bryn's expression darkened. You just declared war on the wrong family, Oren. You may have your little files and recordings, but we have connections, people who matter in this town. I know, Oren nodded. That's why I've spent the last year making my own. Bryn sat across from her attorney, Vance Caldwell, in his downtown Portland office. Rain pelted the windows, matching her stormy expression. He can't possibly have documentation for all of this, Bryn insisted, pushing the letter across the desk. Vance, a rail-thin man with perpetually tired eyes, scanned the document again. Mrs. Mallory, I have to ask, are these allegations accurate? That's not the point. Bryn snapped. The point is he's threatening my family. He's trying to take my son. The point, Vance countered carefully, is whether he can prove what he claims. Because if he can... He trailed off, adjusting his glasses. If he can what? Bryn demanded. If he can, you have a serious problem. Vance pulled out a folder. I've reviewed your prenuptial agreement. That old thing? I signed it 15 years ago when we had nothing. You signed it, Vance emphasized, and it's exceptionally thorough. There's a clause specifically addressing emotional sabotage and family interference that gives Mr. Mallory grounds to invalidate the community property provisions. Bryn's confidence faltered. What does that mean in English? It means he keeps everything that's in his name. And based on the financial records you provided. Vance shuffled through some papers. The house is in his name. The vehicles are leased through his company. Your joint accounts are actually custodial accounts with him as the primary holder. That can't be right. I sign checks from our joint account all the time. You have signatory privileges, not ownership. Vance removed his glasses. Mrs. Mallory, did you read any of the financial documents you've been signing for the past 15 years? Bryn's silence was answer enough. There's more, Vance continued reluctantly. The trust he established for Ellis designates him as sole trustee. Your access is contingent on maintaining residency with the child, which would end with a divorce. So I get nothing. Bryn's voice rose incredulously. After 15 years of marriage, you get what the prenup stipulates. A lump sum of $100,000, adjusted for inflation. Unless what? Unless you can prove he violated the terms first. Vance leaned forward. Did he ever mistreat you or Ellis? Abandon his financial responsibilities? Have an affair? Bryn thought hard, then slumped in her chair. No, he's been frustratingly perfect on paper. Then we need to consider a settlement approach, Vance advised, before this escalates further. Across town, Oren met with Paris Whitman, the steel-spine founding partner of Whitman, Frost & Associates. Her office offered a panoramic view of Mount Hood, though neither of them paid it any attention. Your documentation is impeccable, Paris noted, reviewing the files on her tablet. Audio recordings, financial records, witness statements, most clients bring me emotions. You've brought me evidence. I've had time to prepare, Oren replied. So I see. Paris set down her tablet. The letters have been delivered. What's your desired outcome here, Mr. Mallory? I want full custody of my son, with supervised visitation for my wife until she demonstrates stability. I want my financial obligations to her family terminated without legal recourse. And I want a clean break, no prolonged court battle, no media attention. Paris nodded. Ambitious, but not impossible, given what you've provided. She studied him. May I ask why you waited so long to act? Some of these records go back nearly a decade. Oren's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. I thought things might change, that they might see Ellis as something more than a pawn or a burden. That Bryn might remember why we married in the first place. And when did you realize that wouldn't happen? When they held a vote to excommunicate me from my own family. Oren replied without emotion. In front of my son. Paris made a note. You understand this won't be easy. Your wife's family has social connections throughout Portland. Odessa Harlow chairs 2 prominent charity boards. Trent Harlow golfs with Judge Werner. Your brother-in-law's tech company sponsors half the cultural events in the city. I'm counting on those connections, Oren said. People with influence have more to lose when their reputations are threatened. And you're prepared for the personal cost? This type of case gets ugly. Oren nodded once. I've been paying personal costs for 15 years, Ms. Whitman. At least now it will be towards something that matters. The Bell Tower Cafe sat on the edge of downtown, far enough from the legal district to avoid running into anyone from Bryn's social circle. Orrin arrived early, securing a corner table with a view of the entrance. He ordered black coffee and waited. Delaney Ross arrived precisely on time, her teacher's punctuality evident as she checked her watch before entering. She spotted Orrin and made her way to the table. "Thanks for meeting me." Orrin greeted her, standing briefly as she took her seat. "Your message sounded important," Delaney replied, setting down her weathered leather satchel. "Is Ellis okay?" "For now," Orrin said. "But that's actually why I wanted to talk to you." Over the next hour, Orrin outlined the situation with Bryn and her family, careful to stick to verifiable facts rather than emotional interpretations. Delaney listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but otherwise allowing him to speak uninterrupted. "That's a lot to process," she finally said when he finished. "I always sensed there was tension, but I had no idea it had gone this far." "Few people do," Orrin acknowledged. "I've kept it contained, hoping things would improve." Delaney stirred her tea thoughtfully. "Why are you telling me all this now?" "Because I'm filing for divorce and custody," Orrin stated plainly. "And I need character witnesses who have observed my relationship with Ellis over time. People who can speak to his well-being and our bond." "And you think I make a good witness?" "You've been his teacher. You've seen us together at science club every week for 2 years. You've met Bryn on the rare occasion she attended school functions." Delaney's expression turned serious. "This isn't a small thing you're asking, Orrin. Taking sides in a custody battle could affect my professional standing." "I know," Orrin acknowledged. "That's why I'm not asking you to lie or exaggerate. Just to speak to what you've observed, nothing more." She studied him for a long moment. "Can I ask you something first? And I need complete honesty." Orrin nodded. "Are you doing this for Ellis or to punish Bryn?" "Both," Orrin admitted without hesitation. "I want to protect Ellis. And yes, I want Bryn and her family to face consequences for their actions. I won't pretend this isn't partly about justice as I see it." Delaney seemed surprised by his candor. "Most people would claim pure motives." "I'm not most people," Orrin replied. "And you wouldn't have believed me anyway." A small smile tugged at her lips. "No, I wouldn't have." She took a deep breath. "I'll testify about what I've observed. For Ellis's sake. That boy deserves stability and support." "Thank you," Orrin said simply. "But," Delaney added firmly, "I want your word that you won't use me or my testimony vindicatively. I'm doing this for Ellis, not to help you destroy your wife." "You have my word," Orrin agreed. "Destruction isn't my goal. Protection is." Later that day, Orrin pulled his truck into Hex's auto shop on the industrial east side. The cavernous space smelled of motor oil and metal, a scent Orrin had always found oddly comforting. He found Hex beneath a vintage Mustang, only his legs visible. "Package arrived," Orrin announced. Hex slid out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag. "The warehouse keys?" Orrin tossed him a small envelope. "And the zoning approval for mixed use. You can start the renovations whenever you're ready." Hex pocketed the envelope without opening it. "You sure about this timeline?" "Moving fast, even for you." "I'm sure," Orrin confirmed. "Things are accelerating at home." Hex nodded, his expression serious beneath his wild beard. "Heard from Bryn since the letters went out." "Not directly. Her lawyer called mine. They're evaluating options." Hex gave a humorless laugh. "Rich people talk for how do we make this go away?" "Exactly," Orrin agreed. "But it's not going away. Not this time." "Good." Hex tossed the rag aside and crossed his massive arms. "Never liked how they treated you. Like some ATM with legs." He hesitated, then added, "What about the kid?" "Ellis is my priority," Orrin said firmly. "Everything else is negotiable." Hex studied his friend for a moment. "You know, most men would have cracked years ago. Gotten drunk, gotten violent, gotten stupid. You just got strategic." Orrin shrugged slightly. "Learned early that emotions make poor advisors." "Your foster homes?" Hex asked, referencing the rare occasions Orrin had mentioned his childhood. 7 homes in 12 years teaches you to think ahead, Orrin confirmed. To plan exit strategies. Well, I'm in, Hex declared, extending his hand. Whatever you need. Oren shook the offer hand. I appreciate that. And Oren, Hex added as his friend turned to leave. Remember what we talked about. Strategy's good, but that boy needs his father's heart, not just his brain. Oren paused, then nodded once before walking out into the fading daylight. Across town, Bryn sat in Odessa's meticulously decorated living room, surrounded by her family. The atmosphere was tense, each of them still reeling from the letters they'd received. He's bluffing, Nolan insisted, pacing across the Italian marble floor. He doesn't have actual recordings. It's a scare tactic. Then why did you look ready to faint when he mentioned your investor pitch? Layla asked, looking up from her phone for once, clearly unsettled by the family crisis. Stay out of this. Odessa snapped at her daughter. This is adult business. The business of how you all got caught using Uncle Oren as a personal bank. Layla shot back. Yeah, super adult. Layla, Trent warned, but there was more fear than authority in his voice. Bryn massaged her temples. My lawyer says Oren's been planning this for years. The prenup, the house title, the accounts, everything's in his name. How did you let that happen? Odessa demanded. You're supposed to be the smart one. Me? Bryn's voice rose. This started because you couldn't stop borrowing money from him. Just ask Oren. Oren won't mind. It's what family does every time you needed something. Oh, don't act innocent, Odessa hissed. You were happy enough to live in that house, drive that car, take those vacations all on his dime while you played philanthropist with other people's money. Stop it, all of you. Trent interrupted. Fighting each other is exactly what he wants. We need to present a united front. United against what? Nolan asked. Have you seen the documentation he has? He's got emails where we literally discuss how to manipulate him. Those were private conversations, Odessa insisted, that we had on accounts he apparently paid for, Nolan countered. Do you know what will happen to my company if these recordings go public? I'll lose every investor overnight. Bryn stood up suddenly. I need to talk to Ellis. Is that wise? Trent asked cautiously. Given the custody situation, he's my son, Bryn snapped, and he's my best chance of getting through to Oren, using the kid as leverage. Nolan raised an eyebrow. That's pretty much what got us into this mess. Bryn grabbed her purse. I'm not using him. I'm fighting for him. There's a difference. As she walked toward the door, Odessa called after her. Bryn, be careful. If Oren really has been recording everything. Bryn paused, her hand on the doorknob. Then I'd better make sure my next words are worth hearing, hadn't I? Layla Harlow had grown up surrounded by adults who maintained carefully curated public images. She'd watched her mother transform from exhausted and irritable at home to charming and poised at social functions. She'd seen her father switch from dismissive to attentive, depending on a client's net worth. She'd observed her Aunt Bryn practice donor pitches in the Mirror S.O. when a letter arrived detailing her family's manipulations. Layla felt an unexpected emotion, validation. Someone else finally saw what she'd been seeing for years in her bedroom. Layla reread the section of the letter that pertained specifically to her. Recordings document discussions between Odessa Harlow and Bryn Mallory regarding the use of Layla Harlow to facilitate financial requests, including but not limited to college fund contributions, $45,000, European study tour expenses, $22,000, an automobile purchase, $35,000, none of which were allocated to their stated purposes. With trembling hands, Layla opened TikTok and began recording. So my uncle just sent everyone in my family these crazy detailed letters showing how we've all been scamming him for years. She began, holding up the first page with the law firm's letterhead visible. And get this, the money my parents said was for my college? They spent it on renovating their bathroom. I literally have the receipts right here. The video cut off automatically at 3 minutes, but by then, Layla had shown enough of the letter, including names, amounts, and accusations to ensure it wouldn't stay private for long. She hit post without hesitation. 24 hours later, the video had accumulated over 500,000 views and had been shared across multiple platforms. Local news outlets had picked up the story, focusing particularly on Trent Harlow, whose financial advisory firm catered to Portland's elite, and Odessa, who sat on several prominent charity boards. Orrin learned about the viral video not from social media, but from Paris Whitman, who called him directly. "Your niece has complicated things," Paris informed him without preamble. Orrin, who was helping Ellis with homework at the kitchen table, stepped into his office to take the call. "What's happened?" Paris explained the situation. "This changes our timeline. The Harlow's attorney has already reached out about a cease and desist against Layla, but the damage is done. The court of public opinion is now in session." "I didn't orchestrate this," Orrin stated. "I believe you," Paris replied, "but it affects our strategy. Judge Werner has recused himself from potentially hearing your case. Apparently, he's distancing himself from Trent Harlow as quickly as possible. That's good for us. However, Bryn's lawyer is likely to claim this public exposure is part of your campaign against her, which could generate sympathy." "Understood," Orrin said. "What's our next move?" "Stay completely silent," Paris advised. "No comments to media, no social media posts, nothing. Let the Harlows thrash around in public while you maintain dignity. Focus on Ellis. Make sure he's shielded from as much of this as possible." After ending the call, Orrin returned to the kitchen where Ellis was still working on his math problems. "Everything okay, Dad?" Ellis asked, looking up from his worksheet. Orrin sat down beside him. "Things might get a little complicated in the next few days. People might say things about our family." Ellis nodded solemnly. "Like when Aunt Odessa told everyone at school Mom was having a hard time because you were difficult." Orrin kept his expression neutral despite his surprise. "When did that happen?" "At the school auction last month," Ellis said matter-of-factly. "She told Mrs. Brennan that Mom deserved a medal for putting up with you." "I see," Orrin said carefully. "And how did that make you feel?" Ellis considered the question with the seriousness only a 9-year-old could muster. "Mad, because you're not difficult. You're just quiet." He looked up at his father. "Mom's the one who yells and slams doors and says mean things about everyone when they can't hear." Orrin placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Ellis, I want you to know that whatever happens between your mom and me is not because of anything you did." "I know," Ellis replied with unexpected certainty. "Ms. Ross says adults make their own choices and kids aren't responsible for fixing them." "Ms. Ross is very wise," Orrin said, making a mental note to thank Delaney for her insight. Later that evening, after Ellis was in bed, Orrin's doorbell rang. He opened it to find Bryn standing on the porch, her eyes red-rimmed and her normally perfect appearance disheveled. "Have you seen the news?" she demanded, pushing past him into the foyer. "I don't watch the news," Orrin replied calmly, closing the door. "Well, you should. Your precious documentation is all over the internet. Trent's biggest clients are pulling their accounts. Odessa's been asked to step down from the Children's Hospital Board. Nolan's company stock dropped 30%. Her voice rose with each statement. "Lower your voice," Orrin warned quietly. "Ellis is sleeping. Our son is the least of your concerns right now," Bryn hissed. "My sister's reputation is ruined. My brother's company is tanking. All because you couldn't handle a little family criticism. A family vote to excommunicate me isn't criticism, Bryn. It's cruelty." Orrin's voice remained even. "And I didn't post anything online. That was Layla's choice. After you sent those letters containing nothing but the truth," Orrin countered. "If the truth is damaging to your family, perhaps the problem isn't with the messenger." Bryn's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "What do you want, Orrin? Money? The house? Name your price to make this go away." "I already told you what I want. A divorce and custody of Ellis." "You can't take my son from me," Bryn insisted, though with less conviction than before. "I don't want to," Orrin said truthfully, "but I will do whatever is necessary to protect him, even from his mother." Bryn studied him, as if seeing him clearly for the first time. "You know, I used to think you were just socially awkward, that you didn't understand how people work. But that's not at all, is it? You understand perfectly. You just don't care." "I care deeply," Orrin corrected her, "just not about the things you value." A tense silence stretched between them before Bryn finally spoke again. "My lawyer says I should offer joint custody. 50-50. My lawyer advises against that," Orrin replied. "Because of your recordings?" Bryn challenged. "You think a judge will give you full custody because I missed some science fairs and borrowed money from you. No, Oren said, because of what you and Odessa planned to do with Ellis if I filed for divorce. Bryn's face paled. What are you talking about? Oren walked to his desk and returned with a printed email. This message from Odessa to you, dated 3 months ago. If Oren ever grows a spine and files, we'll need to make sure Ellis stays with you. Trent says the best strategy is to claim emotional neglect. Kids his age are easy to coach, we just need to plant the right stories. Bryn snatched the paper, her hands shaking. Where did you get this? You left your iPad signed into your email when you went to Aspen with Odessa last winter, Oren stated. I've had access to your accounts ever since. That's invasion of privacy. Yes, Oren agreed simply. It is. Bryn crumpled the paper in her fist. So what happens now? Now you leave, Oren said. Tomorrow, my lawyer will contact yours with terms for a settlement. I suggest you take it. Or what? Bryn challenged, though her voice lacked conviction. Or we go to court, and every email, every recording, every financial transaction becomes public record. Oren opened the front door. Your choice. After Bryn left, Oren checked on Ellis, who was sleeping peacefully despite the confrontation downstairs. He gently adjusted the blanket over his son's shoulders, then returned to his office. He sat at his desk for a long time, staring at the photograph of Bryn, Ellis, and himself taken on Ellis's 5th birthday. They had looked like a perfect family then. Perhaps they never were. Oren opened his journal and began to write. The Multnomah County Courthouse loomed before Oren as he ascended the steps, Paris Whitman at his side. Despite the early hour, a small cluster of reporters had gathered, alerted to the high-profile divorce case involving the sister of now disgraced financial advisor Trent Harlow. Remember, no comments, Paris reminded him unnecessarily. Judge Martinez runs a tight courtroom. Stick to facts. Remain calm regardless of provocations. Oren nodded, adjusting his tie. The charcoal suit he wore was one of his few concessions to appearance Ellis had helped him pick it out the previous weekend, insisting his father needed to look like a superhero for court. Inside, the courtroom was already populated with legal teams. Bryn sat beside her attorney, Vance Caldwell, looking composed in a conservative navy dress that Oren recognized as her serious donor meeting outfit. Behind her sat Odessa and Nolan, though Trent was notably absent, likely dealing with the professional fallout from Layla's viral video. As Oren took his seat, he noticed Delaney Ross entering quietly, taking a place in the back row. Their eyes met briefly, and she offered a small, encouraging nod. All rise, the bailiff announced as Judge Elena Martinez entered. In her mid-50s with silver-streaked black hair and penetrating eyes, she had a reputation for efficiency and intolerance for theatrics. Mallory versus Mallory, she stated, reviewing the file before her. Dissolution of marriage and custody determination. I've reviewed the submissions from both parties, including the rather extensive documentation provided by the petitioner. She looked up sharply. I'm going to be clear from the outset. I have no patience for public spectacle in my courtroom. These proceedings will focus solely on the legal matters at hand, not social media drama or family vendettas. Is that understood? Both legal teams nodded their agreement. The next 3 hours proceeded with methodical precision as financial records were presented, timelines established, and preliminary witness statements entered into the record. Oren testified briefly about his relationship with Ellis, outlining his consistent involvement in his son's life, educational development, and emotional well-being. When Bryn took the stand, her testimony took an unexpected turn. Mrs. Mallory, her attorney, began, would you describe your husband's parenting style? Bryn glanced at Oren before answering. Oren is very structured. He believes in routines, consequences, educational enrichment. He's not spontaneous or particularly affectionate, but she paused, seeming to struggle with her next words. But he's consistent. Ellis always knows what to expect from him. In your own approach to parenting, I'm more flexible, Bryn replied. I believe children should experience different environments, different perspectives. My work in philanthropy has exposed Ellis to important social causes. Have you ever been concerned about your husband's emotional connection to your son? Bryn hesitated and Oren tensed imperceptibly, waiting for the attack he'd anticipated. "No," Bryn finally said, surprising everyone in the courtroom. "Whatever our differences, Oren loves Ellis. That's never been in question." Vance looked startled by his client's deviation from their prepared testimony, but recovered quickly. "Mrs. Mallory, given the current situation, what custody arrangement do you believe would serve Ellis's best interests?" Again, Bryn hesitated. She looked directly at Oren for the first time. "I believe Ellis should live primarily with his father." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Judge Martinez banged her gavel once. "Mrs. Mallory," the judge addressed her directly, "are you stating for the record that you support the petitioner's request for primary physical custody?" "Yes, Your Honor," Bryn confirmed, her voice steady despite the tears forming in her eyes. "With liberal visitation rights for me, of course. But Oren provides the stability Ellis needs right now." During the recess that followed, Paris pulled Oren aside in the hallway. "Did you know she would concede custody?" she asked incredulously. "No," Oren admitted, genuinely surprised. "I expected a fight. This changes things considerably," Paris noted. "With custody essentially uncontested, we can—" "Mr. Mallory," Delaney approached them hesitantly. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say that Ellis asked me to give you this." She handed Oren a folded piece of paper. "He made it during science club yesterday." Oren unfolded the paper to find a crayon drawing of himself and Ellis standing before what appeared to be a new house, with the words "Me and Dad's Adventure" written across the top in childish script. "He's been talking about your plans to move," Delaney explained with a small smile. "He calls it your adventure together. I thought you might want to have this today." "Thank you," Oren said simply, carefully refolding the drawing and placing it in his inside pocket, close to his heart. When proceedings resumed, Judge Martinez moved directly to her ruling, citing the unusual circumstance of an uncontested custody request. "Based on the evidence presented and the agreement of both parties, I am granting primary physical custody of Ellis Mallory to his father, Oren Mallory, with standard visitation rights to Bryn Mallory." She fixed Bryn with a stern look. "Mrs. Mallory, while I commend your apparent prioritization of your son's well-being in this matter, I must note that the documentation submitted to this court regarding your past behavior toward Mr. Mallory is troubling. Your visitation rights will be reviewed after 6 months to ensure compliance with the court's orders." By late afternoon, the proceedings were complete. The divorce was granted, the financial separation largely following the terms of the prenuptial agreement. With a few adjustments negotiated by the attorneys, as they exited the courthouse, Oren was surprised to find Bryn waiting near the bottom of the steps, away from the remaining reporters. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly when he approached. Paris gave him a warning look, but Oren nodded. "Go ahead. I'll catch up." Once they were alone, Bryn spoke first. "I know you're surprised I didn't fight the custody arrangement." "I am," Oren acknowledged. "I read all the documentation you had," she explained. "Not just the letters you sent, but the complete files your lawyers submitted to the court." She met his eyes directly. "I didn't realize how much I'd let my family influence me. How I'd started seeing Ellis as an obligation rather than my son." Her voice cracked slightly. "When I read the transcript of him telling you he feels invisible when I'm around, that broke something in me, Oren." Oren remained silent, allowing her to continue. "I'm not going to pretend this makes everything okay between us," Bryn continued. "You methodically dismantle my life, my family's security. Part of me hates you for that. I understand," Oren said simply. "But you were right about one thing," she admitted. "Ellis deserves better than what I've been giving him. So I'm going to work on that. I'm going to earn my way back into his life the right way." Oren studied her for a moment. "I won't prevent you from seeing him. Whatever happened between us, he loves you." "I know," Bryn nodded. "And I'm going to make sure he knows I love him too, not as an extension of myself or my family, but as himself." She took a deep breath. "I also wanted you to know that I'm breaking ties with Odessa and Trent. What they try to do with Ellis. I can't forgive that. That's your decision," Oren replied, neither encouraging nor discouraging her. "Well," Bryn exhaled heavily, "I guess this is it then." As she turned to leave, Oren spoke. "Bryn." She paused, looking back. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry it came to this. There was a time when I believed in us. A sad smile touched her lips. So did I. Take care of our son, Oren. Always, he promised. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Oren stood in the empty living room of their former home, overseeing the last of the movers as they carried out carefully labeled boxes. The house that had been the setting for 15 years of memories, both good and painful, now echoed with emptiness. Ellis darted between rooms, his footsteps creating hollow sounds against the bare floors. "Dad, I found this behind my bookshelf." He held up a small toy car, dusty with age. "Can I take it to the new house?" "Of course," Oren replied, kneeling to examine the treasure. "That was your first Hot Wheels. You were 3. Ellis beamed, pocketing the car. "Is Hex meeting us there?" "He's already there, setting up your bedroom furniture." Oren checked his watch. "And Ms. Ross is bringing pizza for dinner around 6. "Awesome," Ellis exclaimed, then paused, his expression turning serious. "Is Mom coming to see the new house too?" Oren chose his words carefully. "Not today, but she'll visit next weekend, like we discussed." Ellis nodded, processing this information. "She called me yesterday. She said she's taking a class on being a better listener." "That's good," Oren said neutrally, though he was privately surprised and cautiously hopeful about Bryn's apparent effort. "Mr. Mallory," the lead mover approached. "That's the last of it. Need us to meet you at the new place?" "No, we'll handle it from here," Oren replied, handing the man an envelope. "Thank you for your thoroughness." After the movers left, Oren and Ellis stood in the empty foyer, their voices creating small echoes in the barren space. "Ready for our adventure?" Oren asked, extending his hand. Ellis took it without hesitation. "Ready." The new house wasn't actually new at all. It was a renovated warehouse in Bellevue, a small community 20 minutes outside Portland. The bottom floor housed a logistics school Oren had begun developing months earlier, while the top floor had been converted into a spacious apartment with large windows overlooking the Willamette River. When they arrived, Hex was directing 2 of his nephews as they assembled Ellis's bed frame. The burly mechanic greeted them with a hearty wave. "Place is coming together. Kitchen's all hooked up, living room's set, just finishing the bedrooms." Ellis immediately ran to explore his new space, exclaiming over the built-in bookshelves and the desk positioned to capture the afternoon light. "You did all this while planning the divorce?" Hex asked quietly, standing beside Oren in the doorway. "Had to have something to look forward to," Oren replied. "Somewhere we could start fresh." Hex nodded approvingly. "Smart as always. School opens next month." 3 weeks, Oren confirmed. "First class is already full. Turns out there's demand for practical logistics training that doesn't require a 4-year degree. You always did see opportunities others missed," Hex noted. "That's why your warehouses outperformed everyone else's." Speaking of which, Oren reached into his pocket and handed Hex a set of keys. "The Northeast facility is yours now. Transfer papers are being processed." Hex stared at the keys in disbelief. "Oren, that's a multi-million-dollar property, and you've earned your share of it," Oren stated matter-of-factly. "Consider it long overdue profit sharing." Before Hex could respond, the doorbell rang. Ellis raced from his room. "That's Ms. Ross with the pizza." Delaney stood in the doorway with 3 pizza boxes and a hesitant smile. "Housewarming delivery," she announced. "Hope everyone likes combination." "My favorite," Ellis declared, taking the boxes from her and carrying them to the kitchen with exaggerated care. "Come in," Oren invited, stepping aside. "We're still getting organized, but the dining table is set up." As Delaney entered, she took in the spacious interior with appreciative eyes. "This is incredible, Oren. When you said converted warehouse, I pictured something much more industrial." "Dad designed it himself," Ellis called proudly from the kitchen. "He even made my ceiling look like constellations." Dinner was a surprisingly comfortable affair, with Ellis dominating the conversation, describing his plans for his new room and his excitement about the river view. Hex entertained them with stories from his early days working with Oren, painting a picture of a younger, equally methodical man who had revolutionized regional shipping practices. "Your dad once reorganized an entire warehouse overnight because he calculated it could save 12 seconds per package retrieval," Hex recalled, chuckling at the memory. The other managers thought he was crazy until productivity jumped 20% that month. That's how he helps me with homework, too, Ellis commented between bites of pizza. He doesn't just show me the answers, he shows me faster ways to solve problems. That's a valuable skill, Delaney observed with a warm smile. In teaching and in life. After dinner, Hex excused himself to finish some electrical work in Ellis's room, leaving Orrin, Delaney, and Ellis in the living area. Ellis was absorbed in unpacking his collection of science books, organizing them meticulously on the shelves. He seems to be adapting well, Delaney noted quietly. Orrin nodded. Children are resilient, and he knows this was planned, not sudden. We've been talking about it for months. You're good with him, she observed. Patient, present. I had good examples of what not to do, Orrin replied, a rare hint of his past slipping into the conversation. Delaney seemed to understand without further explanation. Well, from a teacher's perspective, you're giving him exactly what he needs: stability, encouragement, boundaries. I'm trying, Orrin acknowledged. It's not always easy to know the right balance. No parent does, Delaney assured him with a gentle laugh. We all just do our best and hope it's enough. Ellis approached them, holding a book about space exploration. Ms. Ross, did you know Jupiter has 79 moons? I did not, she replied with genuine interest. That's quite a collection. Dad promised we could get a telescope for the roof deck, Ellis continued enthusiastically. Maybe you could come over sometime when we're using it? If you want. Delaney glanced at Orrin, who gave a small nod. I'd like that very much, Ellis, she answered. Later, after Ellis was settled in his new room and Hex had departed, Orrin walked Delaney to her car. Thank you, he said simply, for everything: the testimony, the pizza, being kind to Ellis through all of this. You don't need to thank me for that, Delaney replied, her expression sincere in the soft evening light. Ellis is a wonderful boy. And you? She hesitated, then continued. You're not what people say you are, you know. What do they say? Orrin asked, genuinely curious. That you're cold, calculating, emotionless. She shook her head. But that's not what I see. I see someone who feels deeply, but carefully, who plans meticulously because he values what he's protecting. Orrin was silent for a moment, unaccustomed to being seen so clearly. I'm not good at expressing things, he finally admitted. It doesn't come naturally. It doesn't have to, Delaney said gently. You express yourself in your actions, in your loyalty, in the way you built this new life for Ellis. She smiled. Some people talk about love. You build it brick by brick. As she got in her car, she added, I meant what I said about the telescope. I'd love to see Jupiter's moon sometime. Orrin watched her drive away, a strange lightness in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. Scene 3. A new beginning. 3 months later, the Bellevue Logistics Academy was in full operation. The ground floor of the warehouse had been transformed into a practical training facility, with shipping stations, inventory systems, and a small fleet of forklifts for hands-on learning. 15 students, ranging from recent high school graduates to mid-career professionals seeking a change, moved between workstations under Hex's watchful eye. Orrin observed from his office, which featured a large window overlooking the training floor. His attention was divided between the class and the quarterly profit reports from his remaining warehouses, now managed by a team he'd carefully selected and trained. A knock at his door pulled him from his review. Delaney entered, carrying a container of what appeared to be homemade cookies. Thought the class might appreciate a sugar boost, she explained with a smile. Ellis helped make them last night when I was helping with his science project. You didn't have to do that, Orrin said, though his expression softened at the gesture. I know, Delaney replied simply. I wanted to. Over the past months, Delaney had become a regular presence in their lives. What began as academic support for Ellis had evolved into shared dinners, weekend outings, and increasingly comfortable conversations. Orrin found in her something he hadn't expected: someone who accepted his methodical nature without trying to change it. How's Ellis doing with the custody schedule? Delaney asked, taking a seat across from Orrin's desk. The arrangement had stabilized into Ellis spending every other weekend with Bryn, plus Wednesday dinners. Better than expected, Orrin replied, truthfully. Bryn seems to be making genuine efforts. She's more engaged, more present when she's with him. And how are you handling it? Delaney's question was gentle, but direct, a quality Orrin had come to appreciate about her. Orrin considered the question with his usual thoroughness. It's an adjustment. I never wanted to keep Ellis from his mother, just from her influence becoming harmful. He paused. Seeing her change her approach has been unexpected. People can surprise you, Delaney noted. Sometimes even in good ways. Before Orrin could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Ellis. Dad, I got an A+ on my solar system model. Ms. Jensen wants to enter it in the district science fair. Orrin showed the message to Delaney, a rare smile crossing his face. He worked on that model for weeks. I know, Delaney laughed. I still have glitter in my hair from helping with Saturn's rings. The easy moment between them was interrupted by Hex appearing at the door. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you, Orrin. His expression was uncharacteristically serious. It's Nolan. Orrin's expression immediately closed. Send him in. Delaney stood to leave. I should get these cookies to the students before they cool. Stay, Orrin requested quietly. If you don't mind. She nodded, resuming her seat as Hex showed Nolan into the office. Bryn's younger brother looked markedly different from when Orrin had last seen him. Gone was the startup CEO confidence, replaced with a subdued demeanor and casual clothes instead of his usual tech entrepreneur attire. Orrin, Nolan greeted awkwardly. Thanks for seeing me. What do you want, Nolan? Orrin asked directly, not bothering with pleasantries. Nolan glanced at Delaney uncertainly. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of her, Orrin stated. Nolan nodded, then took a deep breath. I sold the company, or what was left of it after everything imploded. I'm aware, Orrin replied, having followed the business news. Nolan's once promising tech startup had been acquired at a fraction of its former valuation. Right? Of course you are. Nolan shifted uncomfortably. Look, I'm not here to ask for money or help or anything like that. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. The words hung in the air, clearly unexpected even to Nolan himself. For what specifically? Orrin pressed, not making this easy. For everything, Nolan admitted, meeting Orrin's eyes directly for perhaps the first time in their 15-year acquaintance. For treating you like a walking ATM. For going along with Odessa's schemes. For not seeing how it was affecting Ellis. He swallowed hard. I was entitled and short-sighted and, well, an ass. Orrin studied him silently, assessing the sincerity of this apparent change of heart. What are your plans now? He finally asked. Nolan gave a self-deprecating laugh. Starting over. I've got a job with a small software company in Eugene. Entry-level coding, if you can believe it. Back to basics. Humility is educational, Orrin observed. Yeah, well, I'm getting a crash course, Nolan agreed ruefully. He hesitated, then added, Bryn mentioned Ellis is doing really well. That you've built something good here. We have, Orrin confirmed, with a brief glance toward Delaney that didn't escape Nolan's notice. Good. That's good. Nolan stood awkwardly. Anyway, I just wanted to say that in person. And to let you know that Trent and Odessa have split up. After everything came out, their marriage couldn't survive the blame game. He seemed to debate saying more, then simply concluded, Take care, Orrin. After Nolan left, Delaney turned to Orrin. That was unexpected. People can surprise you. Orrin echoed her earlier words, his expression thoughtful. Though not always in ways you anticipate. Does it change anything for you? She asked perceptively. Hearing his apology? Orrin considered the question with his characteristic thoroughness. No, he finally said. I don't forgive what they did to me or to Ellis. But I don't need to carry the anger anymore, either. He looked out the window at his students learning below. There's more value in building something new than in dwelling on what was broken. Delaney smiled warmly. That's a good philosophy to live by. I'm learning, Orrin acknowledged, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. That evening, as Ellis chattered excitedly about his science project over dinner, Orrin observed his son with quiet pride. The boy had grown more confident in recent months, less anxious about pleasing everyone around him. Ms. Jensen says I should prepare a presentation for the judges, Ellis explained between bites. Can we practice this weekend? Of course, Orrin agreed. But remember, you're visiting your mom on Saturday. I know, Ellis nodded. Mom said she'd help me practice too. She's actually really good at presentations. Yes, she is, Orrin acknowledged, giving credit where it was due. After dinner, they moved to the roof deck Orrin had built specifically for Ellis's interest in astronomy. The telescope, a serious instrument Orrin had researched for weeks before purchasing, was positioned toward the western sky, where Jupiter would be visible later. "Dad," Ellis asked as they waited for the sky to darken fully. "Are you happy now?" The directness of the question, so characteristic of his son, made Orrin pause. He looked at Ellis, then at the new life they had built together, before answering honestly. "Yes," he said simply. "I am." Ellis nodded, satisfied. "Me too." He peered through the telescope, making minor adjustments. "Ms. Ross makes you smile more." Orrin raised an eyebrow, surprised by the observation. "Does she?" "Uh-huh," Ellis confirmed matter-of-factly. "And you listen to her ideas, not just her words. That's important." "You told me that." "I did," Orrin acknowledged, once again finding his own lessons reflected back at him through his son's perception. "I think she should come over more," Ellis declared, still focused on the telescope. "She understands us." Before Orrin could respond, the doorbell rang. "That's her now," Ellis announced triumphantly. "I invited her to see Jupiter's moons with us. Is that okay?" Orrin smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression that transformed his usually stoic features. "Yes, Ellis, that's very okay." As Ellis ran to answer the door, Orrin remained on the roof deck, looking out over the river and the city beyond. The path that had led him here had been neither simple nor painless, but standing in the fading light, he felt a certainty that had eluded him for years that he had protected what mattered most. He had built something worth building, and perhaps most surprisingly, he had found connections worth nurturing not out of obligation or expectation, but out of genuine understanding. When Ellis returned with Delaney, her smile warm in the gathering dusk, Orrin felt the final pieces of his carefully constructed new life falling into place. Not perfect, not without challenges, but solid. Real. His. "Jupiter's moons await," he said, gesturing to the telescope. Ellis has been tracking their positions all week. As the three of them huddled around the telescope, taking turns observing the distant celestial bodies, Orrin reflected that some journeys like light from those far-off moons take time to reach their destination. But when they do, they illuminate everything.